Latona. Jimmy House.
Joining us now, it is a privilege, one of the masterful artists and musicians of Jethro Tull from the early 60s and has been just dazzling audiences throughout the generations. It is a privilege. Ian Anderson from Jethro Tull. Thank you so much for joining us this morning, Jimmy House and Greta Latona.
Well, it's very nice to be with you. And it's a cloudy day here, too, in little old England. And the onset of winter is nigh. We're lighting a log fire tonight.
That sounds so nice.
Ian, you should put that in a song.
Well, it probably already is, if I could remember it.
Good morning, sir.
It's been a long time.
That's really cool. You're coming to America.
Oh, again, yes.
You're going to be in Morristown, which is a beautiful venue, the Mayo Center for the Performing Arts, October 21st, Peekskill on the 19th, and Collingswood, New Jersey, which is really a nice place, the Scottish Rite Auditorium on the 22nd of October in Collingswood. And we'd like to ask you some questions, Ian.
Go ahead.
You are one of the most famous musicians in the world. I mean, they may know you on Mars, for crying out loud. If you were elected president of the world, what's the first thing you would do, sir?
I would try to get people to talk openly about one of the big issues that face mankind, and the girls as well, in the future is not just simple as climate change, because lying behind that is the issue of population, the sustainable, manageable population for planet Earth. And we're afraid to talk about it because it has so many implications of some big brother world where we try and stop people having babies. But it's not as simple as that. It's a big issue that we actually ought to bring out in the open and talk about things in a way that, allows people to make decisions in their life, and particularly the empowerment of women in countries throughout the world where they don't really get a say in how many babies they're supposed to have. So, that's what I would do. I would try and get an open dialogue going about things that actually affect our grandchildren and our great-great-grandchildren, and perhaps not quite as many of them as have been the case in previous generations.
There are so many places that you've traveled and been throughout your life. Do you associate a song or a piece of music maybe with a particular time or a particular place?
Well, I do quite often. I mean, there are songs that are specifically about or are conjured up by events or whimsical notions in a certain hotel room in a certain country in a certain part of the world. But, equally there are other songs that are kind of ubiquitous. I mean, the song Aqua Lung, it's about homeless people and our reaction to them, our sense of guilt and our sense of not quite knowing how to deal with an issue. And that is pretty universal, whether you're on the streets of Calcutta or London or Washington. Homeless people are there. They may demographically change a little bit, but it's an issue that hasn't gone away since I had that particular song notion back in 1971.
Oh, yeah. Hey, we're joined by Ian Anderson from Jethro Tull. He'll be appearing in Morristown on the 21st at the Mayo Center for the Performing Arts, and we're honored and it's a privilege to talk to you. A lot of people may not know this, but you had a near-death experience or a severe illness in 1996. Can you tell us what it was and what you're doing now?
Well, I have near-death experiences most nights on stage. At my age, they come thick and fast. But no, that was back in. I had a bit of a slip-up on a stage in Lima, Peru, on a wet and greasy stage down by the side of the ocean, and I slipped and tore the ACL in my left leg. The anterior cruciate ligament, and was strapped up by local doctors, which was probably the worst thing to do because I was traveling by aircraft throughout South America into Central America and then into the USA, and so I had a strapped up leg, as a result of which I got a deep vein thrombosis, a blood clot in the veins of the left leg. So that's a pretty serious problem, and not one that necessarily picks only aged and the infirm, but a lot of young folks who are sports people, skiers, football players, they do the same injury, and they are statistically just as likely to have a life-threatening result to that injury if they don't keep the leg on the move and do the right kind of physio early on. So it's something that, you know, I know a bit about from personal experience, and it does leave me, unfortunately, in a position where I guess I'm slightly higher at risk as a result of that in future. So I have to do things when I'm on long-haul flights, like wear those awful elasticated stockings.
The chicks
not
dig those.
Sexy at all.
The chicks dig those. The chicks dig those.
Oh dear, and you know, take an aspirin, and even when I last went to Japan, you know, a long way away, I had to shoot myself up in the toilet of an airplane with a needle in the stomach with heparin, a drug that's used to thin the blood and make sure you don't get a blood clot. But I mean, these are precautionary things. They're something that us folks who've had that kind of an injury and that kind of an ailment in the past have to observe in the future. So, yeah, it's just one of those little things, but it doesn't ruin my day, unless you start talking about it and reminding me of it, of course.
Sorry, Ian.
That's all right.
You have had a career path through 3 generations that, you know, people have just seen you. You've been able to stay current and in the moment, in the time with your improvisations over, you know, 40 countries you've toured. If you had not had this career path, do you ever look back and say, if I had done this instead, what would it have been?
Well, there were a few other things, which kind of, some of which ruled themselves out, being impractical or just unlikely. Some of which, a couple of which I actually tried to embark upon in terms of career choice. But, you know, I think I began as a child, as children often do, thinking of a career in the military, in the army or the Air Force, until I decided that I didn't really feel that good about wearing a stiff, starchy uniform and having to go into battle to kill or be killed. So I thought, next best thing is to be an actor, and then I can do movies where I pretend to go into battle and kill or be killed. Much safer way of making a living. Until I realized that I was a bit afraid to go down in front of people and speak lines and pretend to be somebody else. I just didn't have the nerve for it. So I embarked upon a career in art. I began thinking about being a painter. And around that time, of course, I did discover music as a kind of parallel expression, really, to the visual arts. And so music kind of took over the front runner in terms of career choice. But I did have a little dabble at trying to join the local newspaper as a cub journalist, and got turned down. I also tried to enroll in the police force as a police cadet, but I was about an inch too short for the police force that I wanted to join, largely on account of a lot of marauding Scotsmen who came down from the north of the border on the Glasgow weekends and caused mayhem and madness in the little town of Blackpool, a holiday resort town. So you had to be a big strapping policeman if you were going to defend the city against the northern hordes. And coming from Scotland myself, I know how nasty they can be, with a bit of the fire water inside them and the smell of the salty sea air, and the local wenches, of course, which drove them absolutely wild.
So you tried for a job in the newspaper, yet you write such prolific lyrics and poetry and music, and so much inspiration that you just can grasp from the world around you. Do you see yourself as a song or a piece of music? What would it be?
Well, you know, I think the best thing I could have done, and the best thing I can do, is to try and continue as long as I can to be express something, not just in a selfish way, but to express ideas which will in some way captivate, either entertain or perhaps motivate people, not to educate them, but to try and move people towards thinking for themselves and considering things. So, I guess if I was a song, I wouldn't be a love song. I'd be a song about stuff. I like to deal in more observational and sometimes darker subjects, but sometimes humorous subjects too. But I don't think I couldn't be a love song. I'm not that kind of a guy. I don't really like wearing my heart on my sleeve and talking about personal emotions. I'm more interested in singing about stuff, not just sort of whimsical. I love you, you love me, and that kind of stuff. It's better done by other people, really. Those kind of songs.
What kind of an inspiration really surprised you that you say it's not really a love type of a song, that you saw something and were able to write a song about it and just, bring that to musical life? What that surprises you now that you look back?
Well, it does surprise me looking back, because sometimes songs that I've been singing for a long time, I look at them, I suppose you can be forgiven for just somehow taking it for granted, when you've sung a song literally thousands of times, for perhaps not really seeing it for what it is. But I notice with songs like Locomotive Breath, which is a song long associated with Jethro Tull since the Aqua Lung album, that it is in fact a song that is very much appropriate today. It is a song about issues like population, about global economics, about the sort of headlong rush towards ever more capitalistic grandeur. And so whilst it seems in some way kind of a rather encrypted song, to me it seems pretty obvious that what I was singing about back in 1971 were the same kind of issues that I get passionate about today. And I discovered a song I'd never sung, well, actually never sung since the day I recorded it, probably in one or two takes back in 1972, I think, a song called Wondering Again, which was a sequel to a song called Wondering Aloud from the Aqua Lung album again. And but it was a kind of moving on song about, again, about issues that were becoming uppermost in my mind that I just forgot all about until, I think it was actually some fan had said, well, I'd really like to hear that song. And I realized I hadn't really listened to it properly for many years, and I discovered it and read it through, and I thought, wow, that really is a song for today. So we were just rehearsing it a few days ago in preparation for giving it a little unveiling when we land on your shores in 3 weeks' time.
Boy, that's very exciting, Ian. Ian Anderson from Jethro Tull. Hey, Ian, question: when you're playing live tour dates, do you like to change up your opening act? Do you switch it up a lot?
Well, we don't often have an opening act, really. There are occasions when we do have. I mean, I prefer actually having special guests who are kind of integrated in the show. So, quite often we will have, as we had 2 or 3 days ago in Yerevan in Armenia. We played with a local orchestra there, but we also had a couple of guests from a local rock band who joined us on stage for 3 or 4 pieces during the show, which, is better than having an opening act. It's having someone who kind of takes part in it. They played a couple of our songs and we played a couple of their songs, and I always think that's rather more fun to make it, it's like part of a big meal rather than having a separate, drink in the bar before dinner. You kind of integrate the whole thing in a rather warmer and more invitational and sort of gathering together kind of a way. And I think I rather like the idea that the audience probably appreciate that too, especially when it's a local act. That
connected to that question, over the years of touring, do you remember any performers that came to see you that when you looked out in the audience or maybe backstage before the show, you were shocked to see them? You saying you follow my music?
Well, you don't really often notice them in the audience simply because spotlight's in your eyes and general concentration on what you're doing. You tend not to notice so much in the way of individual faces. But I do remember a time when I was sitting at the side of the stage and where I could see the audience a bit better while somebody else was playing a solo or something. And I did notice a rather stern, solemn face about 4 or 5 rows back in the audience, wearing rather improbable hair, and it was none other than Ritchie Blackmore from Deep Purple, as we knew him. And so when it came to the encore, I leapt off the stage, mic in hand, and sang sang the second and third verses of Locomotive Breath sitting on Richie's knee, much to his total embarrassment.
No.
But I guess he kind of felt, you know, in a funny kind of a way, you know, that it was a little mark of respect that I acknowledged his presence in the audience in a you know, such a way. He certainly looked more. He just wanted to be somewhere else at that moment.
I don't blame him, man. All right, Ian, we're out of time, and it kills us because we have the restrictions of, you know, the formatted radio, which WGHT is known for not having like a strict format. But we're out of time. I'm trying to tell you.
Never mind. It's been good to talk to you anyway. Look forward to seeing you all in a few weeks' time.
We look forward to seeing you in Morristown.
See you in Morristown at the Mayo Center for the Performing Arts on October 21st. Ladies and gentlemen, the great Ian Anderson from Jethro Tull. Have a great week, Ian.
Thank you very much indeed.
The Indian Bamboo Flute.com.
Accommodation, bland but nonetheless appealing. Waiters discreetly at your beck and call. Place the tall sundown potion lightly by your velvet elbow while you compose a message on the wall. So punch my name, and in case you wonder, I'll be yours, yours.com. For the heat, give a clue, leave a kind word, get us to a destination, a domain where our cyber souls might meet. So punch my name.